Picture a colossal boxing ring where two economic titans, America and China, trade punishing blows. In one corner, Donald Trump, with his signature golden hair and cowboy swagger, lands a knockout punch, a 245% tariff on Chinese goods, turning them into luxury items no one can afford. In the other, Xi Jinping, calm but steely-eyed, swings back with a clumsy jab, threatening to ban Boeing planes, shooting himself in the foot like a rookie fighter. This trade war isn't just an economic slugfest. It's a geopolitical drama where the Chinese people are unwilling spectators, caught in the crossfire of misdirected punches. Why is Trump hitting so hard? Why does Xi take the blows despite being outmatched? And who's the winner? 245% tariffs, a disguised embargo. On April 15, 2025, the White House dropped an economic bombshell, a 245% tariff on Chinese goods, from rare minerals like lithium to electric vehicles and tech components. This isn't a gentle slap, it's a straight-up haymaker, making Chinese products in the US prohibitively expensive. Imagine a $100 pair of Chinese-made shoes costing Americans $345, while a similar pair from South Korea, taxed at 10%, stays at $110. Guess which one shoppers pick? It's a no-brainer. This tariff isn't just a number on paper, it's a strategic manifesto, a covert economic embargo shoving Chinese goods out of the US market, which accounts for 28 to 30% of global purchasing power. With over $438.5 billion in annual exports to the US, China faces the loss of a massive revenue stream, like a giant container ship stranded mid-ocean. Trump cleverly leaves a narrow escape hatch, waiving retaliatory tariffs and applying only a baseline 10% or 20% fentanyl tax on Chinese phones, chips, and computers. But don't be fooled, it's a temporary lifeline while the US restructures its supply chains. This is economic decoupling, with Trump telling Beijing, "You played dirty, now pay the price." Facing this 245% gut punch, Xi Jinping retaliates with a move that stuns the world, hiking tariffs on US goods to 125% and threatening to ban Boeing imports. It sounds bold, but it's a wild swing that misses the mark, like a novice boxer punching the air. China's aviation industry leans heavily on Boeing, with 14,200 Boeing planes crisscrossing its skies, each requiring US-made spare parts. Then there's the C919, China's homegrown commercial jet, which Xi tirelessly promotes. The punchline? Only 30% of its components are made in China. The rest come from the US and France. Banning Boeing is like cutting off the lifeblood of China's aviation sector. The irony deepens when American billionaire Kyle Bass points out, with a chuckle, that Xi flies a US-made Boeing 747-8 to promote the C919. It's a moment that makes you laugh and cringe. A leader hawking his country's product using his rivals. Think China can pivot to Europe's Airbus? Dream on. The EU, sharing America's democratic values, won't rush to bail out Beijing. The result? China backs itself into a corner, like a chess player, botching a critical move. Chinese people, caught in the crossfire. While Trump and Xi trade blows on the global stage, the Chinese people are taking the brunt of misdirected punches. The trade war isn't just shaking up ports, it's plunging the lives of hundreds of millions of workers into uncertainty. Major ports like Shanghai and Guangdong, once bustling with cargo ships, now stand eerily quiet, like abandoned gardens. Factories in Guangdong, the heart of China's manufacturing, are canceling orders, halting production, or shutting down for good. According to Victor Shi, an expert at UC San Diego, millions could lose their jobs, triggering a wave of business bankruptcies. With youth unemployment hovering between 15 to 20%, the dream of stable work for young Chinese is popping like soap bubbles. High tariffs are driving up the cost of imported goods, from baby formula to medicine. A can of goat milk formula, priced at 398 yuan, would cost just 90 yuan without taxes, but now mothers are forced to pay exorbitant prices. Cancer drugs imported at 20,000 yuan should only cost 195 yuan if tariffs were zero, burdening patients with unbearable costs. Inflation is set to spike in 2025, pushing 700 million Chinese, those scraping by on $2 a day, as former Premier Li Keqiang once revealed, deeper into hardship. The Chinese Communist Party is scrambling to censor news about the tariffs to stifle discontent, but can they keep the lid on forever? With an aging population and a fragile social safety net, pressure on the regime is mounting. A single spark, like a protest by jobless workers, could ignite a firestorm of unrest, turning this economic winter into a political hurricane. CCP's secret document, digging its own grave. Amid the high-stakes trade war, a leaked Chinese Communist Party (CCP) document, revealed by Professor Yuan Hongbing, exposes Xi Jinping's ambitious yet reckless plan. This 7,000-word strategy, crafted by the CCP's Politburo Standing Committee to counter Trump's tariffs, spans economics, politics, and military affairs. But far from a roadmap to victory, it reads like a political suicide note. The CCP frames the tariff war as an all-out battle, political, economic, military, and cultural, dubbing it the opening clash of America's declining hegemony. Sound familiar? It echoes Mao Zedong's Resist America, Aid Korea slogans. Xi seems to fancy himself a modern Mao, rallying the CCP for a grand struggle to topple the US. But in reality, this plan has lower-level officials trembling, privately cursing it as Xi's final fiasco. The document outlines 4 ingenious but wildly risky tactics. 1. Global anti-US coalition. The CCP aims to exploit international frustration with Trump's tariffs to unite Germany, France, the UK, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Australia, India, and Vietnam in an economic front against the US, sidelining America from global trade. Grand in theory, but pure fantasy in practice. Europe, Japan, and Australia are US allies. They might grumble about tariffs but won't join the CCP's crusade. India and Vietnam are too busy profiting from shifting supply chains to play Xi's anti-American game. 2. Financial nuclear bomb. The plan demands strict oversight of officials and state-owned enterprise leaders' overseas assets. Anyone with accounts exceeding $200,000 must report them or face treason charges. The CCP also plans to dump $1 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds and $2 trillion in U.S. stocks and bonds to crash America's economy. But this is self-sabotage. Such a fire sale would tank global markets, devalue the CCP's own assets, and invite the U.S. to freeze their holdings in a heartbeat. This isn't strategy, it's self-destruction. 3. Closed-loop economy and rationing revival. The document calls for a self-reliant economy and even reviving the rationing system, a return to the planned economy days of food and cloth coupons. Professor Yuan Hongbing calls it courting death. After decades of struggle for a decent life, who in China wants to revert to scarcity? The zero-COVID policy already collapsed under the white paper revolution. If Xi dares impose rationing, public fury might roast him as Chairman Barbecue. 4. Military gamble in Taiwan. The height of madness is a plan to confront the U.S. militarily over Taiwan, dreaming of pushing America east of Hawaii. But the CCP's military is riddled with disloyal generals waiting for war to stage a coup. Yuan Hongbing reveals that even second-generation elites say officers are itching to use conflict to topple Xi. This isn't a strategy, it's a political nightmare. Officials who read the document are terrified, whispering that its execution would spell the CCP's collapse. For the Chinese people, already battered by tariffs and inflation, their leaders' reckless schemes only deepen despair, dragging the nation toward a self-inflicted abyss. Why is Xi Jinping planning nuclear strike against the U.S.? If the trade war is a chess game, Xi Jinping is playing with pieces already cornered by his opponent. Chinese economists repeatedly warn of catastrophic consequences, yet Xi charges into battle with baffling defiance. What drives him to trade blows with Trump, despite the damage to his country? 1. The trap of power and pride. Xi Jinping, who has cultivated a leader-for-life image over a decade, is ensnared in his own kingdom of power. China's economy is spiraling downward, battered by policies strangling private businesses, a property bubble, and colossal public debt, estimated at 300% of GDP. The trade war is a mirror exposing Xi's missteps. Conceding to the U.S. would be a fatal blow to his personal credibility. Inside the Chinese Communist Party (CCP), no official dares lead the trade war, fearing blame for failure or having hidden U.S. assets frozen. This leaves Xi as the main fighter, knowing that win or lose, he'll face criticism. For a leader who equates pride with survival, bowing to Trump is tantamount to signing his political obituary. Like a boxer backed into a corner, Xi swings wildly, even if his punches miss the mark. 2. The tariff cake for the elite. Picture tariffs as a giant cake with the CCP's elite greedily carving up slices. A Chinese netizen laid bare the bitter truth. Without tariffs, an Audi priced at 1.39 million yuan would cost just 350,000 yuan. A cancer drug at 20,000 yuan would drop to 195 yuan. High tariffs keep imported goods exorbitantly priced, ensuring fat profits for state-owned and crony enterprises, allowing the elite to keep fleecing the public. Lowering tariffs would make this cake vanish, exposing the CCP's exploitation and shaking their power base. So despite the trade war's economic toll, the elite cling to tariffs to protect their wallets. To them, the Chinese people are mere cushions, absorbing economic shocks, while personal gain remains the top priority. 3. Nationalism and the superpower. Dream Xi isn't just playing to preserve power, he's chasing China's superpower ambitions. He believes China can endure short-term pain to achieve economic independence and global dominance. China has cut its U.S. export share from 20% in 2018 to under 15% today, while shifting production to countries like Vietnam and Cambodia to dodge tariffs. Massive investments in chips, AI, and the Belt and Road Initiative signal Beijing's preparation for a U.S. decoupling. To rally domestic support, Xi leans heavily on nationalism. Hardline statements like Mao Ning's on X, "We fear no provocation, we won't back down," are doses of patriotic adrenaline, masking economic woes. But the world isn't fooled. A Malaysian netizen likened China to a big kid digging itself deeper, while the world watches and laughs. Propaganda may warm Chinese hearts, but it can't fill their emptying wallets. Xi's moves, like the Boeing ban, aren't the work of a strategist, but the rage of a leader, cornered. Reuters notes China prepared a retaliation playbook during Trump's first term, but this time, actions seem driven by emotion, not reason. Refusing talks and escalating tariffs show Xi's refusal to appear defeated, even as it weakens China's position. The lack of high-level dialogue, as analyst Craig Singleton warns, risks uncontrolled escalation. In this chess game, Xi seems to forget that sometimes knowing when to stop is the real victory. Why does Trump refuse to back down against Xi? Trump's hardline stance isn't just about economics, it's rooted in deep geopolitical calculations, with the WTO and COVID-19 as the twin sparks igniting his resolve. Rewind to the 1970s, before President Richard Nixon opened diplomatic ties with China. Back then, America was the world's factory, a dominant economic superpower that didn't need Beijing. Factories in Detroit and Pittsburgh churned out everything from cars to warships, while China languished in the shadows of the Cultural Revolution. Fast forward to 2001, when President Bill Clinton, chasing the dream of globalization, welcomed China into the WTO, believing free trade would transform Beijing into a fair, democratic partner. It turned out to be a historic blunder, like releasing a wild beast into a civilized garden. Under the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, China turned the WTO into a tool to build an economic juggernaut. They manipulated their currency to keep the yuan low, funneled billions in subsidies to state-owned firms, and maintained abysmal labor conditions to flood global markets with cheap goods. Worse, China has been accused of stealing technology and intellectual property from Western companies, from software to aircraft designs. While the US and its allies played by the rules, China bent them, turning the WTO into an unfair arena where they were both referee and star player. Trump saw through this charade. He called the WTO a scam of the century, a cage stifling America's ambitions. With his 245% tariffs, Trump isn't just hitting China's wallet, he's shattering the globalization dream nurtured by Clinton and past administrations. "We don't need the WTO anymore," he declared. Instead, Trump pivots to bilateral deals, negotiating directly with countries like India and Vietnam to rewrite trade rules in America's favor. By pausing reciprocal tariffs with over 75 nations, he sends a clear message: work with the US, but steer clear of China. It's a bold move to reshape the global order, with America at its core and institutions like the WTO pushed to the sidelines. Another driving force for Trump is his fury over COVID-19. To him, the pandemic wasn't just a health crisis, it was a dagger to America's pride, costing trillions in economic damage and millions of lives. On Truth Social, he branded Beijing the greatest abuser, bluntly blaming the CCP for letting the virus spread globally. But this isn't just social media venting. According to Matt Pottinger and Lisa Tobin, former White House officials who shaped China policy, COVID-19 marked a turning point for Trump. transforming the idea of U.S. China economic decoupling from a fleeting thought into a guiding strategy. Pottinger, former Deputy National Security Advisor, recalls a pivotal moment in the Oval Office in 2020. As the pandemic ravaged America, shaking the economy and threatening Trump's re-election, he turned to his advisors and said, "Even 100 trade deals with Beijing couldn't offset the damage America has suffered from this pandemic." Sitting on the historic sofa, Pottinger realized Trump no longer saw China as a negotiating partner. "I'm not sure we can keep doing business with China," Trump stated. "It might be time to decouple." It was a bridge too far moment, a World War II phrase for actions crossing the line of tolerance. For Trump, COVID-19 was that bridge, burning any hope of a friendly relationship with Beijing. In a speech on April 8, 2025, Trump reiterated, "I had a great relationship with Chairman Xi. It was good for years. But when COVID hit, everything ended. That's it." This wasn't just a lament, it was a declaration of war. The 245% tariffs, alongside fentanyl sanctions, targeting Chinese precursor chemicals fueling America's opioid crisis, became Trump's weapons to punish the CCP. He believes Beijing not only triggered a global economic disaster, but also hid the virus's origins, making the world pay a steep price. Pottinger and Tobin stress the CCP led the world to a crossroads, and now Trump is landing a direct punch. That punch, though delayed, was inevitable. But Trump's actions aren't driven by anger alone. He sees a bigger fight, a battle for 21st century leadership, with the US and CCP as the main contenders. Pottinger and Tobin note that Trump has made China the primary target of his fury, not just for COVID-19, but for Xi's ideological ambition to build a community of common destiny for mankind, to replace the liberal values America champions. While Trump signals cooperation, like proposing TikTok talks or tariff reductions for concessions, the duo warns that a grand deal resolving US-China tensions is a pipe dream. Why? Beijing's economic model is built for global political dominance, not mere trade competition. For Trump, tariffs aren't just economic tools, they're levers to thwart that ambition, restoring America as the world's center. Who will win this fight? In this fierce trade war, America holds the advantage, with Trump's 245% tariffs crippling China's economy. The CCP, reeling from domestic turmoil and economic strain, is pushing for tariff talks and replacing its trade negotiator to ease the pressure. But negotiations can't erase the damage. Trump's reshaping of global trade leaves China cornered, while Xi's retaliatory moves, banning rare earths, threatening Boeing, and pursuing reckless plans like financial sell-offs or Taiwan escalation, only deepen Beijing's isolation. The Chinese people suffer the most, trapped in a losing game. What do you think about the US-China trade war? Please drop your comments below. Thank you, and goodbye.